The speaker today is someone who I have known my whole life. She is she's Miss Climate Change Marin, really, and has been a lifelong activist. She's also my mom. I'm very proud to introduce Louise Lipsey.
Thank you, Devorah, and thank you all for being here. The plastic pollution is a global crisis that is out of control. Plastic, I think many of us are aware, is everywhere. It's polluting our land and our water, killing wildlife, marine life all around the globe. It's polluting our food sources and never goes away. And it's a big factor considering climate change. So we're going to take a look at some of these factors now. Can everybody see that?
Yep.
Okay. So recently,
but you may want to put it in the slideshow mode.
Okay.
And then just play from the start. Yeah, perfect.
All right. So recently, Beyond Plastic, which is a major, wonderful plastic organization that was started by Judith Enck, who was a former worked in the White House with President Obama when she was one of the regional administrators for the EPA. And now she is trying to do something about the plastic in this world because she realized what an important issue this was. And in 2020, the US plastic industry alone released as much as 160 coal-fired plants worth of greenhouse gases, which is incredible. And that's not all, because the US plastic industry is expanding and its emissions are on track to suppress those from coal by 2030 if we don't do something about it. And it's also a serious violation of environmental justice. It's not moving now, Devorah, so, oh, there we go. All right. So the change in our Earth, we can tell by sea level rise, by our temperature changes, and we can see here the temperature, the sea level rise is just going up and up and up. And carbon dioxide from the 1880s to 2019, you can see the trajectory here. And it's not one that we want to see continuing. We are all aware of what this is meaning to our world. We know warmer oceans means more intense hurricanes. We have flooding, and even closer to home, unfortunately, we've had all too many wildfires to deal with. In the fall, we had big hopes. We had Hope 26 doing something we hoped to change this climate emergency. And the IPCC, which you probably have heard, came out with a new report just recently saying we're not doing so well. And they declared a code red for humanity. But the reality is, if we look at what is happening, we right now are at this level. We're not far from 1.5. And look what's happening in our world today at 1.2. But the policies that are being enacted at this moment are not going to make it. We will be way over target. And no matter what is done, the pledges, the targets, unless we really do something significant, we are not, unfortunately, going to be having a livable world for the future generations and for our Earth. We cannot sustain this. And what does plastic have to do about it? If it was a country, believe it or not, plastic would be the 5th largest climate polluter in the world. That's pretty shocking. And how does this relate to the petrochemical industry? Well, there are all kinds of actions happening, trying to cut down fossil fuel use for transportation and for other uses. So what is the plan B? Well, the plan B is moving into plastic production. The reason being, plastics are made from chemicals and fossil fuels. They're coal, they're oil, and they're natural gas derivatives. And today, almost all the plastic that's out there is from ethane, and that is a byproduct of hydrofracking gas. If we take a look at the equivalent of the fracking that's happening right now, this is from the Beyond Plastic report. Each one of these represents a coal fire plant, 2 million tons of carbon dioxide. And look how many are already in existence, and more are projected. So if we take a look, what happens during this process? Well, they go way into the earth to extract this, and the fracturing, as we probably have heard, and first was noticed in Oklahoma when they started having earthquakes. Lots of water is used. And because in the process, chemicals are used, toxic chemicals get into the waterway. And then the methane and ethane gets into the air and creates all kinds of air pollution. Some of you may have seen this documentary called Gasland about fracking. Believe it or not, people in many areas would turn on their water. If there was a flame nearby, it would explode. And maybe you've heard of rivers that actually ended up on fire too. So here we look at what is happening throughout the country, because it's not just the plants, it's the pipelines. There are pipelines, interstate and inter and intrastate natural gas pipelines throughout our country. And what do we know about pipelines? Anybody know what happens in pipelines? They leak, and they leak methane and ethane gases. And we're not separate from this, because here we are in California, lots of pipelines here. Methane escapes into the atmosphere from all parts of the plastic process, from the extraction to the processing and the distribution system. And if we look here, one of the people mentioned is Dr. Mark Jacobson, who is an amazing climate scientist at Stanford, very knowledgeable, and has spoken a lot about this. At the ethane gas cracker plants, and anybody know why they're called crackers? Well, when the ethylene is heated, it cracks. And that is why it's known as a cracker factory. There's tons of them all over the country, and more are going to come online. And it's not just plastic, because they have other chemicals that are mixed in with them. Some of them very toxic and very dangerous and very causing much harm to the people in the areas, as well as the air, of course, goes all over it. So everybody's affected. Here's what's happening right now. Shell is building one of the nation's largest ethane crackers in Western Pennsylvania, and it is going to come online. We can't even stop this. There are 254 planned facilities or expansion that will greatly increase this. And absolutely, we cannot afford to allow this to happen. The plastic industry pollution is also an environmental justice issue. The pollution is not shared equally through the country. If we look at the communities where there have been 1 million or more tons of equivalent of CO2 produced a year, you'll see a great lot of them are along the Texas and Louisiana areas here. And right now, we also have these as well, having a lot coming online. What is happening right now, particularly, is in St. James Parish, Louisiana. Some of you may have heard there's an area in Louisiana known as Cancer Alley. And why is it called Cancer Alley? Because there's so much industry already that's releasing toxic chemicals. I've actually spoken with someone who had to leave there because she told me how in the middle of the night, when they thought people were sleeping, they would allow all this dark black smoke to come into the air and cause terrible health effects on these residents. And this is really very dangerous for the whole country because this will be the largest source of carbon dioxide equivalent in this country if this goes through. Right now, we're hoping there is a stay that the Army Corps of Engineers is taking a second look at this because they didn't even do an environmental impact report. It's very concerning, and we really must see this stopped. Air pollution is not just in these communities, it affects everyone. Worldwide, 9 million people are killed every year from this. And plastic is a huge part of what's happening today. I don't have to tell you how sad it is that so many people had COVID and lost their lives. And we don't even hear about the number of people that lose their lives from air pollution. So it's not a small matter. And as I was mentioning, lots of things are added into the production. And we are not just keeping it at home. We are sending this overseas, destroying other countries. And the ships alone are leaking into the oceans. Many people have had foam plastic insulation into their homes. Not only does it leak carbon gas is into the air when it's being installed, but through the lifetime that it's in a home or wherever it's being put in, it will continue to release greenhouse gases. Some of you may have heard the latest effort the plastic companies are trying to do. They're trying to do chemical recycling. That's just really another name for greenwashing or incineration because there really is no such thing. And as you see here, there are no plants and they're still trying to figure out how to do it. What they want is the government to give them a lot of money to work on this, but it is not a solution. It will just add to the pollution if it ever does go through. We are already giving the petrochemical companies that are doing this $25 billion in subsidies every single year. We do not want to add to this. It is not helpful for our world and it will not work. And even in municipal waste incinerations, that is also a major factor, the plastic pollution that we see. Our water is another area, the oceans. We need this for oxygenation. We are really in danger of having more plastic by weight than fish. We actually, at this point, the trash in the ocean, which is accumulating nonstop, 80 to 90% of it is plastic. And why is that? Because plastic never goes away. You may use it just for a short time, but it keeps on breaking down and lasting forever into microplastic, nanoplastic. The fish, unfortunately, consume it or choke on it. And not only fish, we lose our wildlife, birds, all kinds of destruction. And we are offloading right now to countries all over the world that have no facilitation, no ways of having any ways of disposing of all this trash. It is actually choking the whole area in these so many countries. It is absolutely not something we can allow to continue. And it's not just what we're doing now. The demand is going to increase, increase, increase. The biggest thing right now that we're trying to work on is single-use packaging. 40% of all packaging And all plastic is just going to whatever we're using for moments, and they last for centuries. And it's causing chemicals into the waterways, the oceans, as I mentioned, the wildlife and the marine creatures. And it is contributing, as I mentioned before, the climate crisis, because they're from fossil fuels. They emit greenhouse gases as they break down, and they contaminate drinking water, food supplies, the air. And just so you know, it is affecting people's health. Human exposure to plastic and its associated toxins been linked to cancer, birth defects, impaired immunity, endocrine disruption, and other serious health problems. Every single one of us, every week, is ingesting the equivalent of 5 grams or a credit card worth of plastic. We're finding it on top of mountains everywhere in this world. There's no place that is free from having plastic in the air, and it's actually in the soil, affects the food that we're eating. And of course, if you consume fish that have consumed it, you are exposed there as well. So what can we do? Well, we can be part of the solution. Some small things we can do: bring a usable bottle. Every moment, 1 million plastic bottles and 2 million plastic bags are consumed every minute. And in worldwide, over 1 trillion plastic bags are being used. That's unbelievable. And most of this plastic has been in the last 10, 15 years. Many of us, I'm sure, remember the days before all the single-use plastic when we didn't have to worry about it. But now it's simple, it's easy, it's cheap, but it's expensive in terms of what it's doing to the environment, to the world, and to all of us. Other things we can do: use aluminum. When you buy something in the store, if it comes in aluminum, pick that over the plastic. Store your leftovers in glass containers. Cover your foods with silicone lids and aluminum, not plastic wrap. You can take the plastic pledge. Let's all say this together. Reuse durable, non-toxic straws, utensils, to-go containers, bottles, bags, and other everyday items. Choose glass, paper, stainless steel, wood, ceramic, and bamboo over plastic. Recycle what you can't refuse, reduce, or reuse. Pay attention to the entire life cycle of the items you bring into your life, from the source to the manufacturing, to the distribution, to disposal. And there's more we can do. Besides taking this pledge, you can learn about composting correctly and help educate others. Write letters to the editor, sign plastic ban petitions, lobby for local single-use plastic bans, help promote plastic-free supermarkets, help eliminate single-use plastic in restaurants and cafes, conduct brand audits and contact companies, organize community cleanups, start a plastic-free community group. And brand audits. Brand audits have come about from those of us who have had cleanups and found the plastic coming from a few companies in particular. There's actually 20 main countries that are responsible, companies that are responsible for most of the plastic, and 100 all in total that are creating plastic. In 2021, the Break Free from Plastic corporate brand audit found Coca-Cola, Pepsi-Cola, Unilever, Nestle, and Procter & Gamble as being the top plastic polluters in global cleanup. Coca-Cola, by the way, has had the distinction of being #1 for many, many years. And they're always promising to do all kinds of things. The only problem is they just don't follow through. We have never heard how much plastic they're producing. We've never heard how much they're reducing it or seen the design of their packaging for reuse. They have had some things they've done, most of them haven't been very successful. And it's very interesting because we don't have laws to make them do the right thing. But if you look in countries where they have Nestle, they don't just have their plastic bags of snack food like we have here. They produce them over there and put them in paper. And even if you go to Starbucks, you'll see the lids here are plastic. Are they in other countries? No, they're cardboard. We could ask for and get it here. Don't have to tell you if you go to the stores full of plastic. And in these little bags, they're plastic too. We can bring our cloth bags. We can bring cloth bags as well for our produce. And we can also demand that our supermarkets reduce the plastic packaging. We can let them know, you are destroying our oceans. You're harming our turtles, our whales, our fish, every part. We know that less than 9% of plastic has been recycled. Actually, if you think about really effective plastic recycling, it's been less than 2%, which is terrible. So we must ask them to phase out all this unnecessary packaging and demand that the CEOs get rid of all this. They can do this. There are places doing it, and they can do it too. So to curb plastic pollution, mainly we can do things ourselves, but we also have to speak out. We have to speak out to the corporations and to our legislators to help. Let's stop producing single-use plastics. Let's stop plastic from getting into our environment. Let's demand companies focus on reuse and refill models, find new and alternative ways to deliver their products, hold plastic producers and sellers accountable through government regulation, and let's get our government to put laws in place, focus on phasing out the production, the import, sale, and use of single-use plastic. They're not going to do this on their own, these corporations. So what we can do, help support what's right now in Congress. It is called the Break Free from Plastic Pollution Act. And I'm sorry to say, we have two senators. Dianne Feinstein has been a big supporter, but our other senator has yet to come on board. We really need everybody to contact him because this is what we need. We need to do something to strengthen environmental justice, to have these refill and reuse programs. We need to hold companies accountable. We need better design, real recycling, get out these toxins, reduce pollution, get rid of the single use, and have a better way of managing our waste. And some of the specific things are way that they'll do it. We'll get rid of the buying and burning of plastic waste. We will get rid of the chemicals groups, and we'll get rid of every step of the way, all these greenhouse gases, as well as promoting better jobs, and we'll create jobs in the economy. As we probably have all heard, the number of jobs in the coal plants and all are pretty small, but the job potential for renewable energy is huge, and we can do something about it. So you can write Senator Padilla and let him know we need him to get on board. Also, because of the chemicals in this and the environmental justice aspect, we need to have the White House behind it. We need actually to have a climate emergency. If President Biden declares a climate emergency, he can stop these plants today. And we can call on the Army Corps of Engineers and the EPA regional administrator of this area where this is happening right now. So here are more things you can do. Writing the editors of local papers, national ones would be great too, but you could make a difference just doing that. Right here in California, we have some legislation we can also support. You might see it says 2019 on here. And that's because some of us have been working on it that many years. We have not yet passed this. We need this. Get rid of single-use plastic. We can do this. We have an opportunity to get involved. You can contact these organizations. And here on our ballot coming up in November, some of you may have signed the petitions that we were distributing to get this on the ballot, and it will be there. It will be on the ballot. Stop plastic pollution on the November 22 ballot. This will be making a big difference. It will help require that single-use plastic packaging and foodware in California be reusable, recyclable, or compostable by 2030. It will ensure that plastic producers reduce single-use packaging and foodware by at least 25% by 2030, and as well as prohibit the distribution of plastic foam. Styrofoam is absolutely just dreadful. And most communities around here have already stopped it, but we need to do it throughout the state. And the food containers with it must not be allowed to continue. We need to fund these recycling programs, habitat restoration, environmental cleanup by charging a fee to producers of single-use plastic packaging and foodware. And it's not going to be expensive for them. It's not going to be more than a penny per package. What this is really going to do is going to give us what we have in Europe and South Korea and Japan and elsewhere, extender producer responsibility, where the corporations are the ones held responsible. And when they are responsible, believe you me, they'll find a way, as they have in other countries. The best way forward is just to stop producing so much plastic, replace harmful plastic with reusable or refuelable products that can provide us the same service without using any disposable materials at all. And we can do this. We can stop consuming so much. We can stop accepting all this. Recycling should be a last resort, not the first. We need to stop reducing it. One of the things everybody can do here is sign up for emails from Beyond Plastic. And you can follow them on social media. Beyond Plastic is forming local groups to help promote people becoming more aware and more involved. And so this is something every one of us can do now. And I would like to share with you an amazing trailer for a film that I would highly, highly recommend that everybody watch. Share. Let's see. Oops. I think we're going to have to stop this. Devorah, could you turn the video on? If for some reason this is not permitting me to go back to my screen.
Sure. Let's see.
Good idea to turn the video on before doing the share.
For her or for me, Scott?
Oh, whoever's going to share the video, if you turn it on and open it up first.
I had it on earlier, but for some reason it's not coming back. I'm sorry. But while Devorah is doing that, perhaps if there's anybody that would like to ask a question, that would that could take anybody that has a question. Oh, Susan,
hi, can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can, Susan.
Hello?
Yeah, we
can hear you.
Yeah, please
Hi,
go ahead.
hi, Louise. It's Susan. Hi. Anyway, Louise is the best because I'm involved in one of her climate groups. I just want to share with you that I've been doing my best to get rid of plastic and replace it. And something I just got that I think is so cool is plastic, what we call plastics for picnics and stuff, but it's made of bamboo. And unfortunately, I can't show it because my video, I'm having problems with my laptop, but it's this little set with a fork, knife, and spoon. And I actually got it from KQED when I joined. I chose this as my gift but the bottom line is I'm going to really research this because it is just amazing to see it all. It's a fork, knife, and spoon. It just fits in a case. And so what I'm finding is, thanks to Louise, and my concern is I'm gradually finding substitutes. And like I'm throwing out all the plastic containers that I stored food in the refrigerator. I mean, Louise did this years ago, but I'm replacing it with glass, and I've already bought some. And so I'm realizing, wow, there's so much that we can do as individuals. So I just wanted to share that and say that I've tried to do everything Louise has suggested. And I'm glad that she's in my life and has taught me all of this. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Susan. And I also would like to say that the best thing of all is to reuse what you have. If you're going on a picnic, keep things together at a picnic basket and reuse them. And just to be aware, there are all kinds of things out there that will pretend that they are recyclable. There is no such thing as compostable plastic. And actually, the little numbers that you see on plastic are really just telling you what they're made out of. And ones and twos, yes, many of them can be recycled, but most of the others cannot be. And none of them are as cheap for companies to use as using new virgin plastic, which is why we just need substitutes. So as Susie said, we can use glass, we can use bamboo, we can use all kinds of other products that can be. For instance, like metal, 70% of that can be used, but only 2% of plastic can be effectively reused. Deborah, can you show that?
I think Scott has a question.
Oh, sorry.
If you got the video ready, go ahead and I'll ask my question afterward.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to turn this on and then I'm going to do screen share. I'm going to pause it. Let's do screen share. Okay.
That came out this past week.
How's that?
The world's oceans.
Okay.
32% of plastic packaging ends up littering the environment. 40% is sitting in a landfill somewhere. 14% is incinerated. 14% is recycled. But only 2% is effectively recycled.
Downhill from the prison, downhill from the mall, downhill from the factory farm and the hospital.
It's not reasonable at all that we continue to live like this.
Downhill from the bottom wall, downhill from everywhere, downhill from all you see. The ocean is downhill from gravity.
About 8 million metric tons go into the ocean every year. That's the equivalent of one city garbage truck dumping a load of plastic into the ocean every minute of every day.
This is the story of plastics. It is fossil fuels finding a new form and finding a new place to flow through the economy.
The surge of attention to plastic pollution is pretty striking.
Do you think about it all?
I believe we're at a tipping point right now. I've seen more policy change globally in the last 8 months than I've seen in 20 years of my career. Because not only are governments getting pissed off, but companies are recognizing they can't get away with it anymore.
I don't think they can keep on tricking people forever.
We're back with an alarming new report that came out this past.
Am I stopping it there?
That's great.
Okay.
Yes, it's obviously, this is the trailer, but it's a film that I highly recommend everybody watching. It is available for you to see online. And it points out really what we're doing is having a detrimental effect on so many places in the world. These areas, these beaches and places that are getting infiltrated with all our plastic, they can't handle it. And it isn't fair to them. They don't want it. And there was a Basel Convention that 180 countries signed. Unfortunately, ours was not one. Right now, some of you may have heard there is going to be, the next 2 years, countries are coming together to work on a global plastic treaty. But it's going to need a lot of support. Already, guess what country has taken out something that's important to have included? Guess who? We did. The US requested, and it was removed, to have a petrochemical aspect to be controlled. I hope that gets changed, but that is very discouraging because you can't take the chemicals out of this, because the toxic chemicals are part of the whole system. And they're in there for many reasons. One of the reasons that people like plastic, some of it's lightweight, it lasts so long, and some of it's more durable. That's why it lasts forever. And some of the reasons it has those kinds of properties is the additives that are put into them. And that's very disconcerting and something that should be part of any treaty. But even so, that's 2 years away. Every year, more and more plastic is produced. And as I mentioned earlier, 40 to 50% is just the packaging.
I'm going to interrupt you because I know Scott has a question, and then Duncan has asked.
Please go ahead.
As well. So go ahead, Scott, and then Duncan.
Okay, and Duncan had a number of comments during the talk, so I look forward to hearing those. So first of all, my comment, Louise, thank you for your passion and enthusiasm in sharing this information with us.
Quiet. Go ahead, please.
We'll hear a lot of voices like yours, I hope, in the future, and that's going to be important to get us to pay attention and understand what the issues are with plastics. My career was in the food industry, most of the time with Nestle. I was ashamed to see that we were in the top 5. But I can also say that there was always a lot of thought going into what the packaging should be made of. And we used to justify plastic on the basis of it weighed a lot less than metal and glass, and therefore the shipping would use less fuel. So there are trade-offs in there, but it may be that we've got to the tipping point on plastics where the trade-off should never be in favor of plastic. So I'll leave my comment there and turn it over to Duncan.
Well, I just want to make a comment to your comment.
Sure.
I commend you for saying that. And part of the problem was this has only been the last 10 years that this has become such a huge issue. If you have small amounts, it's not going to make a major difference in the world, probably, but it's the overwhelming amount that's being produced today. So companies, in the past, it was not something that many companies had to be that concerned about. There were very few people speaking out about this. And it's really only since fracking came about that the proliferation has become so humongous, because that's what makes it so cheap to do. So thank you. Okay, please.
Scott, I didn't know your background in Nestle, but one of the things I wanted to mention was we live in a place where the water is so potable. Why do we have bottled water? You know that the bottles ship empty from China on cargo ships filled with containers of empty bottles. That's how that happens. And then the water is filled in the United States. So it's kind of crazy that that's where the plastic comes from. And the little bit of plastic recycling we do goes back to pellets that become the plastic of the future. They don't actually get recycled, they get reused in a way. The old plastic turns into new plastic. It just doesn't go away. So, shameless plug for oceancleanup.org. Buy the sunglasses, they're awesome. And you can clean up a football field of the Pacific Gyre.
Well, I wanted to say, I agree with you
Guys.
that cleanups do help because 80% of all the plastic that is in the ocean comes from land. And one of the things that a lot of it goes into the landfills. But what happens with landfills, they leak and it gets into the waterways and the rivers bring it into the ocean. And that is, you're absolutely right, Duncan. But in order to stop having so many cleanups, because I have run cleanups myself. However, it's very difficult to keep up. And it's way too much and it never ends. The best thing to do is to produce less. We don't need single use. These major cracker plants that I was mentioning earlier, what are they for? They're all for single use packaging. And that is what we need to speak out about. We need to have real action. Regulations, the extender producer responsibility is what will make the difference. And
I completely agree with you. It's a demand side problem.
You are 100% right.
Does anyone else have questions or comments that they wanted to make? Yeah, go ahead, Charlie.
I just wanted to ask Louise if there's any kind of a movement to change the bottles that medications come in, because that's totally plastic.
You are so right about that, Shirley. Yes. I will say medical supplies are sort of one of the areas that are not being talked about to do anything about, because that is necessary. I don't think the bottles need to be plastic, but that is somehow an exception and it's not part of what is trying to be regulated. But it is true, that is a concern. I'm not sure what bottles they used to put them in the past, but perhaps that is something else that could be, set in cardboard or something other than plastic. So thank you for saying that.
You used to take the bottles back in and have them refilled. I know that wouldn't happen now, but yeah.
Actually, that is one of the models that we need more of is refill.
Mm-hmm.
Our national parks are being inundated by plastic. It's destroying the animals and the habitat of the parks themselves. And one of the actually regulations people want to see is more opportunities for people to have refill stations in the parks themselves. So people are not bringing in the plastic bottles and just leaving them all over. And there is, hopefully will be a separate bottle bill that hopefully will make a difference as well. But there's two aspects of bills like that. They have to be enforced. There's a bill in New York that called for all kinds of bans, but apparently it hasn't up till now been enforced. So we need to push for the regulations, and then we have to make sure they're followed.
Any other questions or comments?
Can she repeat the website for the plastics that
Yes, and maybe Devorah can share some of the slides
Sure.
with you later. It's called Beyond Plastics, beyondplastics.org. There is another organization called the Plastic Pollution Coalition that has wonderful videos monthly that you can watch online. They had people from Hollywood last month talking about how, just like in the past, people used to have, you know, cigarettes in the films. Now they're showing single-use plastic, and that needs to be something that is reduced. And the people in the productions need to stop bringing plastic to their own rehearsals.
And Joyce was going to ask a question. Go ahead, Joyce.
Please.
Is there anything that we can do, because we can't avoid plastic? Like, I reuse my sandwich baggies by washing them out. I'm probably polluting more by washing them out and hanging them to dry than by getting a new one. But, you know, it's something, I feel. And then, are there any organisms that are being developed that will digest the plastics in the ocean that might come up with some sort of reduction of plastics?
Well, there are things, but they're not up to scale. And there are substances. One of the things I always recommend to people when you do get something, I have to say, I received some products and I thought there was styrofoam in it. And I called the company immediately and they said, "Are you in a kitchen?" I said, "Yeah." "Well, go to your sink." Okay. Put it under water and it dissolved. It was peanuts.
Oh, starch.
Brilliant. And
Starch, yeah.
so, but if you do call, also one of the things, believe it or not, fast fashion, polyester, the synthetic fabrics have tons of plastic in them and they're big pollutants. One of the things really, they need to have washing machines that have better filtration, or use and stop using these big bottles of plastic detergent. There are sheets now you can buy. They come in little sheets that you stick in your washing machine without using anything. And I called again a company because the sheets came in plastic. And I said, "How are you selling this at Whole Foods in plastic?" And they said, "You're right. We are stopping that now." And that means if you enough people call these companies out, that makes a difference. Let them know you like their product, but you're not happy with their packaging. And I think that has to happen. My husband's an artist. He received a little pen for his painting, and it came in a huge box full of all kinds of terrible stuff. And I took a picture and I sent it to the company, and I actually sent it to the head of it. And that's what we need to do. Speak out. Don't just say, "Oh, well." And I was pleased just recently, we got some new batteries from Amazon and it came in a cardboard box and I went, hooray. So they will, if we do something, change.
Is that the last note to end on? Do
I,
we have any more questions or comments? I know we're coming up on
yes.
the hour and there's an office meeting right after this, so we are going to have to wrap it up. Duncan, go
Okay,
ahead.
office meeting is great. Just one comment. Thank you for airtime. I was a strong proponent, a 20-year member of Monterey Bay Aquarium. I asked them, "Please stop sending plastic membership cards." And they just sent me plastic guest cards. I thought, you didn't get the message. Stop it. They're all going to end up in the ocean, which is the antithetic effect of their purpose. So,
well, you'll be happy to
gotta
hear
call them out.
somebody from the Monterey Aquarium has made some wonderful statements about this November
Yes.
22 measure that will be on the ballot coming out, saying how much we need it. So they're doing lots of good things too.
They're doing a very large amount of good things. I'm happy about that, but
I'm so happy.
we tend to sometimes overlook the small stuff.
Yeah. Well,
Water
and
bottles.
to say the biggest thing all of us can do is really speak out, because we can make a small difference. Sometimes people say it's only 4% of what we do that can make a difference, but the big differences are changing the corporations, changing the way they do business, and that takes legislation. That takes all kinds of rules and enforcement. We need EPR, if you remember those initials, EPR, Extended Producer Responsibility. Speak out for it. That's what we need. That will make the biggest change for our whole world. And we also can spread the word and ask others to do this as well, because this is something that takes lots of voices. I can tell you, I remember way back in the 1970s, when we had the first Earth Day, 20 million of us were out there. And we had a president that wasn't the biggest environmentalist of the world at that time. We had Richard Nixon. What did he do? He signed the Clean Air Act. He signed the Clean Water Act. He started the EPA. Would that have happened? I don't think so, without people speaking out. So no, you can make a difference. You can make reach out to the politicians and spread the word. Because that is
Everybody has a voice, maybe not locucious as you, but everybody has a voice.
All right, I'm
Actually-
gonna leave it there. Everyone does have a voice.
Everybody, and
Really
I thank you all for being here
appreciate
and I thank you all for caring. And that is what it takes. If
Thank
people
you for
care
your
about
time
protecting
and your
what we
lesson.
have, then you want to do something to act to keep it. So I thank you, and I encourage you all to keep being aware and to keep acting and join Beyond Plastic. Become part of the solution. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. All right, thanks everyone for coming. I'm gonna close it out so the next meeting can happen right after this. Okay, take
Thanks,
care.
Louise. Bye.
Thanks again.
Bye. Thank you. And you're
Bye.
welcome to contact me also for more information. Bye-bye.